Hi, I'm Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud, a podcast where I share thoughts and TV commentary on shows I like to watch. Now, before I start, I want to ask that you go ahead and like, follow, share, and subscribe. And on YouTube, where I upload my companion episode of my podcast, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This way you can get a notification every time I post a new episode and you won't miss out. All right, so welcome back. I thank you so much for joining me. Your presence is very much appreciated. All right, so I've been doing my best to watch the live feeds when they're not down. And so I'm going to just pick up a few things that I've learned during the times I have watched it. And I'm going to start with what was the first? Friday. Yeah, it was April 1st, Friday. So it was right after 12:30 p.m.-ish Eastern time. All right, it was the first time I turned on the feeds that day. It was during my lunch break. And what do I see? Marty and Herman, they're talking. It was at the tail end of their conversation. And Marty wanted Herman to talk to Canada as an assurance that he will not put Marty up next week if he wins HOH. Marty says he'll show his trust to Herman by not putting him up. And they are now going after, quote unquote, the floaters. That's interesting, right? All right. Later on, we see Marty then talking with Josh to share that the chain of safety messed him up. And it was so hard to choose, which then led to his vote, which he felt bad about. And we know in that vote, first he chose in the chain of safety challenge, he chose to select Helena, not Gino, not JC Lynn, not Jess, right? And then after that challenge competition that JC Lynn won, it resulted in Gino and Jess being on the block, and Marty voted to evict Gino. So I suspect that's what he's talking about in terms of the whole chain of safety messed him up, which led to his vote, and he felt bad. So he's telling all of this to Josh. He then says he just didn't know what to do. Gino is a comp beast, so he knew he didn't have to choose him. He didn't have a deal with Jess, and Jess is like his sister, and he chose Helena because she never won a comp, and now he feels he's in the middle. What? Flip-flopper Marty. He feels like he's in the middle. And Marty reveals that he trusts Kevin and Helena. It's just going to be a challenge to keep up with Flip-flopper Marty this week. I see. Well, that's what was going through my head. It's going to be a hard time keeping up with him because he flip-flops. I was just getting dizzy listening to him talk with Josh, In this conversation with Josh, Marty revealed he's still going with there was a rogue vote for Gino last night. He's still playing it up in terms of who was the other person that voted? It's just... So at this point, he hasn't fessed up to voting out Gino when I was watching the feeds on Friday, right? So Friday afternoon, he hadn't fessed up to voting out Gino. He kept going along with, who's that rogue vote? And blaming other people. All right. He then tells Josh that his mind is not made up yet on who he'll nominate. And this was a big red flag to me because I immediately sensed that Josh may be one of the two nominees, just based on, just look at Marty and his record and how he speaks and how he goes about the game. That told me that Josh would be considered a nominee. And then Marty starts running his mouth like a faucet. He confessed to Josh that he was behind getting Josh backdoored, and he was behind getting Tanisha backdoored and getting her out. Then he's trying to convince Josh he doesn't have any alliance. He claims he feels closer to JC Lynn versus Gino, and he repeats that over and over again. And then he repeats he was with Kevin and Helena. And then I just turned it off and spent the rest of my lunch catching up on something else that kept my mind calm. Because watching Marty is just, it's a bit much. All right. Marty wound up taking JC Lynn to Wendy's. Later on, Marty tells Moose that he's safe and going after quote unquote floaters. Flip-flopper Marty. In all honesty, the way Marty's moving could be considered a pivot, right? Because anytime the game changes where his game is threatened, he is definitely pivoting. And we see that. He consistently changes his game. And he also wins comps, which is very important in the game of Big Brother, right? If something happens that's threatening your game, you pivot and you make a new plan. And we see that, right? And so sometimes when I'm saying flip flop or Marty, it's all in fun because, it's part of the recap and part of Big Brother. But Marty, I don't know, he's not a likable person. So this is just the way he moves in the game. It's kind of annoying, and he is a flip flopper. And I don't necessarily respect his gameplay, but he is pivoting. But Marty is a flip-flopper. Make no doubt about it. Again, I haven't been glued to the feeds because every time they get into a conversation, the feeds cut. And it just annoys me. So I'm just now going to share a few observations and some things that I picked up. This is going to be a really quick update. All right. So from what I picked up, and this includes spoilers, by the way. So if you're not interested in spoilers, you can cut it off and just wait until the episode airs. All right. So Marty's gone back and forth between who he'd like to put up on the block and send home. He's changing his target again and again and again. And it's only been a few days, right? He's gone from Betty and Josh to Moose to Herman to Summer, back to Moose. Marty and Summer got into a fight where I found the way he spoke to Summer, it was a little off-putting to me. I didn't like it. And the fight was over something Jess told Marty, and he believes Jess over Summer. So I don't know. I really don't care anymore when it comes to Marty, because we know the way he pivots or the way he plays this game and the way he moves in this game. I don't like it. I don't respect it. It makes me like him less. So I don't care. All right. The only satisfaction I think I will get is when it comes to Marty, is to watch how much he continues to throw his game away by the way he's talking to these people. And these people specifically, I'm talking about Betty, Josh, Herman, Moose, and Summer. I am going to get satisfaction watching him throw his game away because his moves are not necessarily strategic. They're much filled with emotion to me, in my opinion. And his approach is really poor when it comes to jury management, right? So the satisfaction I'll get is when he realizes that Betty, Josh, Summer, Herman, and Moose, when and if they all are evicted, they all are jury members. And if all 5 of them are in that jury, guess what? That makes them the majority in selecting the winner of the season, right? So at some point when he's out of this manic state, he's going to realize that, and I'm just going to be interested in seeing that. But if he continues the way he's going and the way he talks to them and his biases really are affecting him in this game, he will not win. Especially if Betty, Josh, Summer, Herman, and Moose are all in jury. They are the majority of who will be selecting the winner. And I don't think he's thought about that, or he has come to that realization yet. But I'm sure when he does, we'll see him pivot again in another manic state. He's just a mess in this game to me. All right. But I'm going to get satisfaction of that. That's the reason I brought that up. All right. Now, I don't want him to make it to the end, him meaning Marty. I really want Summer or Herman to make it to the end. But for Summer, she has to win a competition. And as we've seen, she just can't win. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's so frustrating to hear this and watch she can't win. But it's imperative for her to win something to make a move in the game. Up to now, she's had influence on a few moves, yes, but to change the game that will advance her own individual game, she has to win an HOH, and she has yet to do that, And Herman, now we've seen him be able to win competitions that advances his game, but when you're dealing with a Marty in the game, it doesn't matter. And I really feel like his game is in danger this week with Marty being the HOH. And as far as Moose, Josh, and Betty, the same. They have to win an HOH to change the game. And we haven't seen that yet. And so in terms of Gino and JC Lynn, I'm shocked that they're still in the game as a showmance, and they've made it this far. It doesn't make sense to me to keep a showmance in the game. It never makes sense to me. But for some reason, house guests or players continue to drag them along. Well, I shouldn't say drag, because they really are winning and they are advancing their own games in terms of winning competitions to keep them in the game, right? But I don't understand why the other players are continuing to allow a showmance. It doesn't make sense to me. But maybe it makes sense in their head, I don't know. But they've been able to win competitions under pressure. That alone, the threat of how well they play a game and a competition, that alone would make them a target for me, especially when they're not my ally, right? So let's forget their showmans. The two of them have been able to win a competition under pressure. They are not, if they are not my ally, that immediately makes them a target for me. And I don't understand why other people aren't doing this. And maybe they are seeing it, but they can't do anything about it because they're not winning HOH competitions. Oh my gosh. All right, Kevin. He's playing exactly like he said he was when he had his interview coming into the house. He still remains in a good spot for now. Helena, she's still in the game. And what she's doing is working for her. A lot of people do not like Helena. I may be on that bandwagon too. I don't care for her. I don't dislike her like I dislike Marty and like I dislike Jess. Helena is not my pick, and I don't want her to win either, but I don't dislike her. But nevertheless, what she's doing in this game is working, right? She's still in there. She's still not on the block. She's still not a target. So we have to give her some type of props for that, right? And she also remains in a good spot for now. As with any of this or all of it, I could be wrong. I just refuse to be glued to the feeds any longer. I may have missed a few things, so you have to fill me in on any important developments that you're aware of that I may not mention. So please and thank you. All right. And as a reminder, Marty is this week's HOH. He has nominated Betty and Josh. The veto players were selected, and they are the two nominees, Betty and Josh, plus Gino, Kevin, and Summer. And Moose is hosting. Which, by the way, Marty's manic behavior this week, he's displaying dislikes for Betty, Josh, Herman, Moose, and Summer. Yeah. But when they announced Moose was going to be the host of this week's Power of Veto competition, Marty apparently made a face that he's hosting, right? Because he's not happy with that, and he's making this face. I don't know what I do know what that's about, but it just goes to show you, what, Marty? You're mad at Moose? You just told him on Friday that I can't with Marty. Marty's under the impression that he is being made a fool out of by Betty, Josh, Herman, Moose, and Summer. I don't know who is doing this, who is telling him this. Is this some of the things that happens in the diary room? They go in sane and then they come out insane because for some reason he has it out for these people. He thinks that they are making a fool of him, including Tanisha when she was in the house. He felt like all the black players were making a fool out of him, but the fact is they aren't. They're not making a fool out of you, Marty. You're doing a great job all on your own. You certainly don't need anyone's help because the way he is parading around this house saying, I'm going to call Big Brother on you, and I'm talking to Canada, and denying his vote to evict Gino, to then publicly announcing he voted to evict Gino when they were all in the on HOH lockdown. Excuse me. And then he's saying he was tricked during the chain of safety. And then he's making up stories in his head based on his own biases about the black players in the game, creating this non-existing Cookout 2.0, where then he put Tanisha as the head of the Cookout 2.0 and the mastermind. When we all saw that while Tanisha is a sweet girl, in this game, she was very emotional and she was no mastermind. Okay. Excuse me. So Marty's paranoia, in my opinion, it's almost like it's a mania. He's having some type of manic episode. It's just toxic to me. It's toxic, excuse me. And it's definitely wearing me out. I guess that's what I want to say. Look, it's wearing me out so much, he's getting me to have a coughing attack. All right, speaking of wearing me out, I read an article online where Jess was now defending her behavior in the house, where they made a reference to Tanisha calling Jess Jessica. And that was in reference because, remember, with Tanisha's speech, she was like, names matter. Well, Jess is like, well, I told her that names matter, and I'm very, like they are very aware of like respecting people's names and stuff. And basically she was trying to defend her position in terms of how Tanisha called her out or called them out. Because remember, Jess kept calling Tanisha Tiana. So on Tanisha's way out of the house, she wanted to give one last dig. I mean, it was petty, but I don't know, it was fitting. Anyway, they interview, they have these exit interviews, and Jess, in the article, Jess is defending, she's like, well, I do pay attention to names and all this. Or they're like, well, I do pay attention to names. I'm respectful and all that stuff. And then they said, and I did correct Tanisha because Jess is not her name. Or Jessica. She doesn't go by Jessica. That's not her name. Let me start over. Jess was complaining or implying that Tanisha didn't have respect for her because they had to correct Tanisha because Tanisha kept saying Jessica, not Jess. And Jess was very clear, like, Jess is my name. And all I have to say is Jess is just full of it. Right? What they did in that house was performative. It was. I don't find Jess to be a genuine person at all. And BB Canada, they introduced us to Jess by Jessica. It's on their site. And not only is Jessica that name on the site, but their pronouns include she, her, hers. So Jess is full of it to me. The way she used the way they use their pronouns as a weapon in the game against Moose, it still disgusts me. And I've just decided that I don't like Jess. Yep. I think Jess is fake. They're fake to me. And that's wearing me out. And on one other note, Big Brother Canada production, with how much the feeds have been down or cut every time there's a conversation that's happening that's interesting. To me, I think they're doing that in an effort to like protect certain house guests. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's annoying. Last night, just waiting on the feeds after the Power of Veto competition, I'm going to be paying attention to the next episode that they air when they show that POV competition, just to see what exactly was involved where the feeds had to be down most of the day like that. It's just, as a fan, okay, I know BBUS, they cut feeds, but I don't remember it being like that, especially after competitions, right? And BBUS, we're able to see competitions on the live feed. So I don't know, maybe I'm used to that and it just annoys me when I can't see that for BB Canada. But they cut into these conversations when they're not even that heightened of conversations. They're real conversations that people have in everyday life. And anytime it gets to where it seems like, I don't know, it just seems like they're trying to protect specific house guests. The feeds keep going down in mid conversations and I don't like it. And as a fan, it's really just turning me off. And it's turning me off so much so that I think this is going to be my first and last time reviewing and recapping a BBCAN season. I just can't. It is enough, Anyway, Are you happy about Flip Flopper Marty and the way he's approaching his HOH with his nominations? Let's just chat it up in the comments. Let me know. And that's all I have. So be sure to come back and give me a listen. I'd love for you to like, share, follow, and subscribe so you can leave me a comment, leave me a message. If you're listening to the podcast, there's a link to leave me a message right on the landing area. So please check that out. All right. My name is Danielle, and you're listening to my podcast, Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I appreciate your support. And that's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.